Hey, I wanted to talk to you a minute today about the gig economy. What is the gig economy? It's basically the side hustle, side income economy that's become so popular today and age. I hope you're still listening to this ad because it's really important for me. I was in the network marketing industry for over 13 years and I had an incredible experience. I learned a ton of things, but there were many things about the industry of network marketing that I really didn't love. One of which was the overinflated products. Number two was the fact that I had to build a team or balance those things that we would call legs, the whole pyramid thing. I really was done with that. About a year ago, I was introduced to a social retail company. Social retail simply means that we are using our social media platforms, which are free, by the way, to promote products and services that we love. The affiliate marketing is booming. Not even going to lie. It's an incredible place to be in. And I am speaking to the woman who's in her 30s or maybe in her 40s, and she'd like to create that extra income. She'd like to create income on her own time. And she'd like to do it in a company that isn't all about the hype, that has some real products that she can get behind and would work with somebody who wants to teach her how to do that. If that's you, then I would really love it if you would reach out to me. Feel free to comment below or leave me an email. Scan the code. I'm sure there's a code somewhere if you're watching on my YouTube channel, but I would love to get in touch with you. And this is why. The company that I'm with, modere.com or modere.ca, depending on where you're at, check out shiftingretail.com. So that's shiftingretail.com. I want you specifically to go check out the values of this company and what their mission is. That was really important for me. I got flown down to the corporate offices and I had a chance to meet with the corporate crew and meet with the visionaries that are really driving the company forward. And what I discovered is this. The first thing they said to me was, Candice, when people come here from a network marketing company, they start making money. Now, disclaimer, this is work. This is going to take work. This is going to take energy, effort, time, and skill. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. Those don't exist, at least not ones that I would like to put my name behind. However, this company pays us 10 to 36% on commissions of whatever we've moved within our business. And we get paid daily. We get paid up to twice daily. Biggest, coolest thing about this, if I move product, I get paid on the product, period. No balancing legs, no having to do any of that stuff. If product moves because of a referral that I did, whether it was through my social media, through a swipe up influencer, or a person-to-person conversation, doesn't matter. I'm going to get paid on it. And for me, being paid on the work and the effort that I do is important. So if this is something that's intriguing to you, I invite you to head over to shiftingretail.com or head over to Smiley, that's CSMILEY.shiftingretail.com, and you'll be able to join my team directly. If you've got some more questions, please comment below or find a way to contact me and get in touch, because I would love to share with you how we're building this and how affiliate marketing is the place for you to be. And trust me, once I show you how to do it with this company, I will show you the many companies, brick and mortar stores, you name it, sole proprietors, entrepreneurs who have an affiliate-based idea. And once you can do it with one company, you can do it with any of them. So I'm excited to teach you that. In fact, so excited, we're going to give you 120 days of done-for-you post or text that will help you so that you don't have to worry about what to post or when to post or how to post it. We're going to give all of that to you. You just got to show up with drive, determination, and some cash flow to get you started. $39.99 gets you your affiliate link and code and gets ready to start. Maybe you want to try some product too. It's awesome. But up to 2 customer orders actually qualifies you for commission. So you don't even have to place an order, provided you've got customer orders that are moving in your business. Brand new customer orders qualify you for commissions every month. Super cool. Definitely an opportunity for somebody who wants to come in, put some effort in and work with integrity, work with honesty, but really begin to use the social media time that right now is really just wasted time and turn that into cash flow. Awesome. Hope you have a wonderful day and keep enjoying our show. All right. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Create the Ripple podcast. I am your host, Candice Smiley, and here we talk about trusting the niggle and telling the truth. I think today's going to be all about telling the truth. My guest Oh, we had a little great little chit chat before we got started. As most of you know, there's usually a pre-show, which I really do need to start recording. Like seriously, every time I do one of these, John, I think, there's some really good nuggets in the pre-show. but I
There
need
is.
that to connect, right? So anyway, John and I actually are not too far away from each other, but we were talking before the show got started that we have a mutual connection who's not close to either of us who got us connected, and now we get to have a chat. So before I get too far into this, John, why don't you let people know who you are and how you got here, and then I've got some questions for you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I live in Red Deer, Alberta, so I mean, I'm just south of the QE2 here,
Yeah.
and yeah. But I've had a really varied background, and if you'd have said, approaching 40, that I would had the story that I have, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you because I grew up in small town BC. But I've been a nanotechnology researcher. I spent 6 years as a marine engineer in the Navy. I've been a four-time entrepreneur. I've got two failed businesses. I've been a globetrotting English teacher for a number of years. So I've done a lot. And I would say it was during my travels around the world was really where I went from being athletic to then struggling with obesity. And it was as a result of some trauma that I suffered while I was living in South Africa. And so that began this journey of weight loss, but I think more than just weight loss, but like personal growth. And prior to that, I would have thought that anybody who was, say, overweight was like lazy or undisciplined. But then I found myself, after going through trauma, turning to food as a type of coping mechanism because I really was not equipped to deal with it. And now all of a sudden I'm kind of wading into this murky world of weight loss, diet culture, and I spent a lot of years and a lot of wasted time and energy trying to find answers in all the wrong places. So it was when a coach, I say, shone a light on this glaring problem staring back at me. And I think it's really important that this was a male coach because men don't talk about this stuff a lot. And for him to model for me what was kind of missing in my life. So he shone a light on the fact that my relationship with myself was, well, spiteful and angry. It's probably putting it politely. It's like I'd tried to punish my body into submission and just trying to make it do things that it didn't want to do because I wasn't taking care of like the real root cause. And so he really worked with me to help me to shift my relationship with myself, with my body, and because of that, it really has formed like the pillars of what I do now as like a nutrition. I say nutrition and weight loss coach, but I'm like really the nutrition I feel like is the cover story. It's about creating transformation in people's lives, and for me, the two core values I live by are compassion and integrity. So
Well, I love that. And, I was so intrigued when, we were introduced and I did a little, research to see who you are and what you were about. And I was surprised because most, weight loss coaches or those sorts of people are usually women. And of
mhm.
course, women, we're so attached to our self-worth in terms of, how we look in the mirror and how we perceive ourselves and all that kind of stuff. And I love what you said in terms of the relationship with food. I had the opposite challenge with food. And so when things I can't control them happen, I just don't eat because I'm like, well, I can control that, right? And
Makes
um,
sense.
yeah, enjoyed, the pain of hunger was easier, and some
Mhm.
self-worth got wrapped up into that. Um, that being said, it was never necessarily the relationship with the food. It was more the relationship with myself. And once I healed that, it was funny how it's so much easier now to nourish myself, right? Foods become about nourishing, foods become about, eating the right things. And so I love that you brought that up. I love too that you brought up the fact that men don't usually talk about this.
Yeah.
Right? You guys
I,
don't talk about a lot of things, actually,
mm,
that's part of
yeah.
the challenge.
Well, ironically, or maybe not, I work primarily with or predominantly with women, and it wasn't really that I set out to do that.
Yep.
Um, and probably 5 years ago, or I would have been a terrible coach for women because I was. My wife used to jokingly call me the Tin Man, and it is a pretty accurate description. It's not. I'm an empath. I have been my whole life, but for most of my life, I was either suppressing it, ignoring it, or denying it. Because having big emotions and being really in tune with other people's emotions is not really something we commonly associate with masculinity. And so perhaps there was even this fear around it that I would be seen as weak if people saw me for who I actually am. Someone who has a real sense of compassion for other people and genuinely wants to help, but is also really connected to my own emotions. Men like the safe emotion is anger, and that's about it. The conversation is shifting, thankfully, and has been, but it still has a long way to go.
I think that's very interesting that you bring that up because I'm also an empath, and spent most of my life actually living in the masculine energy of our blended selves. And it's been only in the last almost 2 years now that I have been re-embracing my feminine, not the siren feminine, which was safer,
Mm-hmm.
the forward facing, but the one that would receive and therefore, could be perceived as soft in this
Mm-hmm.
case, as you're saying. So I think even sometimes as women, we struggle to show that vulnerable side.
Right.
Again, probably for the same reasons, right? Not wanting to be taken advantage of or perceived as weak,
Yeah.
which is such an interesting thing because when we get into that space and we actually live in ourselves and live in that space of integrity, as you were saying, that's actually way stronger,
Yeah.
right? Than anything else we could do.
It's a lot harder to be shaken. Yeah. When we understand our value, we understand our core values, and that's what we attach ourselves to, versus trying to connect ourselves to the opinions of other people. These other areas that we look to try to find validation, and that's not to say that it's easy in a sense, because I think once we sort of recognize who we are, we take a stand for that person, and then we start to establish boundaries, really healthy boundaries on what we allow and accept in terms of how we want people to be treating us, and so on. Um, it does sometimes bring conflict into the relationships that we have already, because maybe they were used to seeing us operate a certain way. I mean, I have a wonderful marriage. I've been together with my wife. We're coming up on our 15th anniversary, but we've been together for almost 17 years. Yeah. And but there was this time as I was going through this shift and this transition that I started to, in one sense, like stand up for myself. It's not that my wife's a beautiful woman, and she's got a heart of gold, really. But she'd become accustomed to treating me a certain way because I had basically been the Tin Man, where I suppressed all of my emotions, and so it's like she had to almost be like really abrasive to try to like reach me and connect with me, and then to try and help her to realize that, like, I actually found that quite hurtful in the ways that she was like very abrasive, and that we could communicate in a much healthier, in a much different way. So it's almost like I had to kind of teach her how I wanted to be treated differently now that I was kind of connecting with my emotions, which sounds interesting in hindsight.
No, I totally can relate to that. Having, been learning my own boundaries from the other side, right down to, being able to embrace my personality and saying, I'm going to do this, and having people come back and saying, but this happened in the past, and going, yes, and this is who I want to be. This is how I want to function in the world. And I've never said that, before, which I think is so interesting. It is really interesting. The weight loss part of your story really is the cover story.
It
The
is.
book, this is way more interesting book than I thought we were going to going to have a conversation. Not that I wouldn't have loved to talk about weight loss, but
Yeah.
I love where you're going with this, because I agree, in the sense that, if I talk about anxiety, or I talk about some of the eating challenges, or some of the mental challenges I've had in terms of struggling with suicide and some of this kind of stuff, it all went away when I went inside and did the work inside. And so
Yeah.
those were all, at least for me, symptoms of how unhealthy, or the unhealed traumas that I was
Mm-hmm.
just covering up and looking to replace or fix or whatever. I've spent most of my life being very restless, and so I always want to travel or do things, which has led to some poor decisions for sure, because
Yeah.
I make it on a whim rather than really thinking it through and asking, like, does this really serve me? Is this what I want to do? And so it was so cool, John. It was like the last 6 months I realized I'm not a poor finisher. I just started too many damn projects that I didn't actually want to finish because I
Right.
didn't want to say no,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
I didn't want to make somebody else uncomfortable. Be like, I think that's a great idea, but I don't want to do it right now.
Yeah.
And as soon as I acknowledged that, it was like this huge weight lifted off my shoulders, because I've been told so often, well, you're just a horrible finisher. Yeah. Well, when you start projects that you don't actually want to finish, and then it's too hard on your own internal integrity to finish them. So guess what? I'm a brilliant finisher because I'm only starting things I want to actually finish.
Yeah. And I love to say that, like, all behavior makes sense. And I don't mean that all behavior is beneficial or necessarily helpful or serves us, but when we understand kind of how we're wired as human beings, when we understand some of the basic psychology and kind of the basic areas of our brain and how they function, all of a sudden, a lot of things that seem counterintuitive or they don't, they actually make a lot of sense. So exactly what you described there, there was maybe a lack of personal boundaries, a lack of effective boundaries, maybe a fear of conflict and conflict avoidance,
Yeah.
um, wanting to be a people pleaser. I mean, I just finished a conversation with somebody else who, a former client who's reached out and said, I think we need to work together again, because I found myself slipping back into old patterns of behavior where, she's this wonderful, wonderful lady. You got a beautiful big heart of caring for other people and continually neglects herself repeatedly. And that's the real issue here. The symptom is, carrying around extra weight. But the real issue here is, another lady I just had a chat with today. I've had a lot of really interesting conversations today.
Yeah.
It's easy to shrug off things not as not important when it has to do with myself. I wrote that quote down because that's just what she said. And
Good.
I don't know why someone didn't show this to me 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It seems to take us a long time to really learn these things. We actually have to do a lot of unlearning, actually, before we can learn these things.
Yeah, I was chatting with a gal yesterday about this very thing, right? That she was like, "How do you learn to do this?" And I said, "Well, you're not taught," which is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate
Mm.
about talking about setting boundaries and learning how to speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. Because I mean, that's certainly part of my story. Is even now today that I've learned how to find my voice and I can speak it, I still shakes. I mean, even today I had to go on a conversation. It just wasn't a fit for me today. And the pushback kept coming of, well, we need to do this today. And I was like, but no,
Yeah.
but no. And that's hard for me. And it actually took me showing up on a Zoom call to look them in the eye, to be like, look, want to connect, but not today. Today, no, today is a no. And it's really interesting to me that it's still hard for me. And I like to talk about that because I want people to know that you can be a recovering people pleaser. I'm sure at some point it's going to become easier. It's certainly become easier in parts
Yeah.
of my life. I tend to attract these people who have no problem speaking their mind, their heart, their truth, whatever it is. And to be honest, when they do it, I kind of want to say, like, can you stop and do that again and tell me how you did that? Like, how do you feel that? And then tell me, what's that like for you? so
Uh,
I can learn to do it.
yeah. And I wonder if there's even, I don't know if sometimes learn is maybe even the wrong term
Mm,
in a sense,
mm,
because I believe that there's something that resides within us, this ability to do this already. Like it's already wired into us, but maybe we're actually, and that's why I use the term unlearn.
mm.
We're conditioned to
Oh,
behave in a certain way, I mean, and I don't want to dive down, there's a lot of ways you could go when you use the term like we're conditioned to behave in a certain way. There's a lot of
yeah.
factors that influence. But I mean, let's say look at my own past story, right?
Mm,
I spent time in the military, service before self. Um, but really all that did is reinforce a previous pattern. And so if I go back into my childhood, like because I was an empath, I had a lot of temper tantrums as a kid. So all these big emotions I didn't know how to deal with. That often spilled over into me getting into fights because I was physically a pretty big, strong kid. And I don't know, people seem to like, well, let's take a swing at this kid and see what happens. That's how it was. But every time I got into a fight, like I'd go home and I'd cry. And I'd cry because I'd hurt somebody else. But then I started to push these emotions down. I'm like, nope, don't want to feel that. The other reason is I was like, I don't want to cry. I don't want to feel like the pain I feel after being in a fight with somebody. So I'm going to push these emotions down so I don't get into fights. I will learn to suppress these emotions so that when somebody's trying to trigger me, I didn't use words really. This is me observing now, looking back. That was my way of like not getting into fights, is to really just swallow the emotions and push them down and pretend they weren't there. That began this pattern of me becoming the quote unquote tin man. And then, I spent 6 years in the military, where we reinforce that pattern with service before self, where you just become a number in a system. And this is not speaking against military service. I think there's some real value in that, and I respect anybody who puts on a uniform. But for me, it reinforces a really unhealthy pattern.
yeah. Well, I was thinking, too, even in my upbringing, which was incredible. I'm so blessed by the parents and the grandparents who, put into my life. However, one of the things I did learn was not how to express the big emotions, and I've commented on this before. I don't know if I've ever seen the women in my world actually get mad. I've seen them be passive. I've seen them be
Mm-hmm.
passive aggressive. I've seen them, bite their tongues. I think the most like violent I ever saw my grandmother was when she slammed the door in somebody's face who was coming to solicit, and she didn't have any time for it. And I remember being absolutely shocked, even though, right, this person was coming where they weren't wanted and knew they weren't wanted and this sort of thing. And I remember being like, grandma, right? Like absolutely shocked,
Yeah.
because the way I was raised was, walk quietly, speak softly, be gentle, be kind, be all of these different things, very, very feminine traits. I know what they were trying to do.
Hmm.
However, all it did was, push all of those things down when I wanted to be loud and I wanted to speak and I wanted to do all of these things. And, I don't really fit in a box. And thankfully, they're coming around to the fact that, you know, if someone's going to question something, it's going to be me. But, even that has come to this space, right? That really well-meaning, but then who gave them the space,
Hmm.
you know?
What's very interesting as an adult and doing like what I do in my line of work to look at my parents,
Mm,
and I love my parents. They're 42 or 43 years married,
mm,
stable relationship. I feel very, very fortunate they're my parents, loving relationship. But now I see these behavior patterns that they exist with and struggle with. And I'm like, oh, that all makes sense. My grandfather was, captured as a prisoner of war in World War II. That affected how he raised my dad significantly. And my dad, in the best of his capacity, tried not to repeat what he experienced as a child.
mm,
You know, my mom, incredibly talented, very artistic, but also very self-conscious her entire life. And so all of this wonderful, I mean, she could create basically anything with her hands. She could draw beautifully. She could paint. She can sew. She can knit. She can just so talented. But rarely did that talent really truly get recognized and appreciated. And rarely did she have the confidence to say, like, this is what I do and I'm good at. And then a lot of that was covered up with food. And so I'm like, well, hey, this is where I kind of learned this pattern, this language around, well, maybe I'll just snitch a piece of that or just take a little bite, and so on. And we look at these patterns, we go, oh my gosh, this is where it came from. And they were just doing the best they could with the tools they had. Like, I often say, if I think about like what motivates the work that I do, I'm like, I'm trying to be the coach I wish my mom had 40 years ago.
yeah, I hear you. I mean, if I think about, yeah, I've looked back on that, and then it's been a bit of a freeing thing as now I'm a parent. I have a 6.5-year-old and a 3-week-old. And so, I look at them and think, I'm trying my best not to repeat patterns, but we really just do the best that we can with what
Yeah.
we have. But how powerful is that I have them as that example, to be like, I see this, I see what's not working, and now I can stand on the shoulders of those giants, because like you, I
Yeah.
have so much respect.
Well,
uh,
I just want to take a step back here. I heard you correctly. You said you have a 3 week old.
I do.
You look
Yeah.
very rested, which is unusual.
Well, yeah, I'm very, very blessed in that I'm a little bit older the second time
Mm.
around. So I think that helps. It seems to be a little bit easier. My partner is at home, and so I'm really, really supportive. This partner that I'm with now was very much I attracted in a very different space, which I find to be just an incredibly incredible blessing. I was actually thinking about that this morning when we were
Yeah.
enjoying a cup of coffee. Little one had nursed, and we were just sort of sitting in the silence. And I was like, this is the life I always wanted. Um, but it's been 20 years in the making. It's been 20 years of a lot of work and personal development. We were actually discussing a very tough topic that we don't always see eye to eye on, but we're really committed to hearing the other one. And so, he had brought up that him bringing it up triggers me. And then how I respond triggers him. And, I
Yeah.
was laughing about it. And so was he. He was like, so I triggered you, you triggered me. And then I went into this hole and you went into that hole. So let's
Yeah.
try again. And I really love that, because I burst out laughing and I was like, yeah, reset. Let's try that again. And I think that's amazing. And I mean, part of it was when we met last in the pandemic, we were both looking for something different. And I showed up into it saying, this is what I don't want. I don't know exactly what I do want, but I know I don't want to repeat this pattern. So if you're willing to like wander into me introducing myself to me, because I've done a whole bunch of healing in 2020, 14 weeks worth of very intensive
Mm.
healing. And so I said, I don't want to jump out of one thing into another when I don't really know who I am. And anyway, that whole sort of telling the truth and, like you say, living in integrity, like total integrity, has been just a magical experience. So yes, I think that's part of the reason why I'm not tired is choosing to manifest this little being and the relationship and the support, and the career that I have. I can go back to bed at 8 a.m. if I need
Yeah.
to. And that's really magical too, to be
Yeah.
honest.
I mean, I just have an 8.5 month old, and well, he's 38 weeks today, actually. So
Cool.
yeah,
That's exciting.
he's a ton of fun, and I feel very fortunate as well that I work from home,
Mhm.
which means that I can be present because like through all of this, we really haven't had a lot of support. My family lives in BC, my wife's family lives in Australia.
Oh, wow.
So, and then you think about sort of social isolation and not having people around and stuff. Like we had no support as we're like trying to navigate parenthood for the first time. But that being said, like again, we're older as well. I'm 39, my wife's 37, and having I think gone through this development meant that like when it came time to like bring another human being into the world, we're in a much better headspace for it. Not to suggest that it's easy, um, but it makes a big difference. And I would say like I'm a much better father now than I would have been if I'd been
Mhm.
a father 10 years ago.
Yeah. I feel that. And I mean, certainly I had done a lot of work before my daughter was born 6.5 years ago. And that certainly had an impact on, her personality and how well she slept and all that sort of stuff. I did a lot of living before I decided to have a child,
Yeah.
which I think makes a difference because, people are like, aren't you tired? And I was like, yeah, but this, he's awake. It's 5 a.m. Why is he awake at 5 a.m.? I don't really know. But you know what? He's really cute and he's not going to be awake in, a few years. In a few years, he's not going to have any time for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm just going to be in this moment right now and I'll catch a nap later, or, another cup
Yeah.
of coffee, right?
Yeah. I mean, I really try to be present. I say with like 4 of the 5 senses. If because in that first year of development, so much change happens, and I remember, so, like just after my son was born, and my wife desperately needing sleep, and so I mean we both did really. So then I take our son, and he's maybe like a couple of weeks old, if that, and I'm just holding him, and he goes into that little froggy scrunch position that's like so much fun, and he snuggles in, and I'm in this like rocking chair trying desperately not to fall asleep because I'm like I can't fall asleep holding my newborn son, and my wife badly needs sleep, so I can't go back. I can't disturb her, and I would like watch 5 minutes like tick off the clock and be like, I just got to get 5 more minutes, and just in 5 minute increments try to keep myself awake while holding my son, um, and that got me through like she got like a 2 hour nap out of it going 5 minutes at a time, and so but already that time seems like a distant memory now, like it's just gone because now he's crawling, he's pulling himself up, he's got tons of vocalizations. But what fascinates me is well, one my patience with him because I'm intensely curious as to how he's developing, his brain's developing emotionally, and it's really fun to watch. Even when he's like flipping out randomly, I don't find myself like getting mad at him.
Yeah.
I recognize he's got a little nature, he's got a little behavior, and if there's something he doesn't like, he's going to let us know. And it's sometimes it's too bad. It's like you're going to go to sleep, kid, because it's for your benefit. But
Yes.
I'm way more patient than I probably would have been 10 years ago, where I would have just got frustrated and like I don't know, whacked him or something like that, and like stop misbehaving. And I'm like, oh, like this behavior is not helpful, but it happens for a reason. And he's 8 months old, and his brain is just developing, and we're going through a sleep regression because he's got separation anxiety now, and we switched beds, and no wonder he's waking up every hour and being like, I'm not sleeping and he won't sleep in my arms. Which breaks my heart just a little bit because I want him to sleep in my arms, but he won't like not sleep in my wife's arms if he sees her. It's like I must be like in full contact with you, like every square inch of my being must be touching you. So my poor wife, she's trying to get some sleep, but he won't
Yes.
sleep But that's the joys of parenthood. All
Yes.
of this to say, like, I try to smell his hair and go like, okay, well, what am I smelling right now? How soft did it touch? How soft is his skin? And just listen to his breathing. And like, so just really tap into my senses in that moment. And I think that's how I can sort of be present with him. And because this time is just zipping by, and it's so precious.
Yep. No, I agree. And I know, right down to that, um, for the longest time, I had given up the dream of having more kids because I also have these really big dreams to make an impact in the world
Hmm.
and continue to connect with people. And, heard from a really lovely mom shortly after I had my daughter who said, now do you understand why I just want to be a stay-at-home mom? And I had to respond and say, actually, I don't. I understand the desire to just sit and stare at the small human because I understand and I want to do that all the time. And I remember the day after my daughter was born, I woke up, she was sleeping in the bassinet, and I had a look at her. And I remember thinking that I really thought of these big, hairy, audacious goals that I had for my career, for who I wanted to be as a person, outside of the title of mom, had not gone away. And I was a little
Hmm.
bit surprised because I had met some women who said that they had disappeared after they had kids, and kudos to them. But I found my desire for these goals renewed. And I remember thinking, how the heck am I going to raise a small human and do all of these things? And, that question, when I would ask it to other people, often came back from people saying, well, you can't, and you're going to need to make some sacrifices and stuff like this. And so I played very small. And one of the dreams I gave up was the dream of having more children, even though I very much want to be a mom
Hmm.
more times than just one.
Yeah.
And it was only last year after I did the healing and I started to really finally tell myself the truth about what I wanted in my life and what I didn't want in my life. And I was like, I want more children and I want this big dream. And I'm aware that I might have to sacrifice some time in different spaces, but I am in control of that. I will choose what that looks like and I can call in the support. And those limiting beliefs were just, it was like this aha moment that I had been defining myself by somebody else's things. And it reminded me when you're talking about, the weight management and that sort of stuff, that, we use these things to keep ourselves small rather
Hmm.
than owning that thing and then looking at it and saying, well, I'm not sure how I'm going to do all of these things, but I'm going to be honest about the fact that I do want to do them.
Yeah.
And that brings a lot of relief for me in terms of the restlessness and that sort of thing. And that, integrity isn't necessarily one of the words I would use in terms of my core values, but I have one very similar to you in my 10, and compassion as well. And once I got clear on those things, it's so much easier. And I think that has an impact in terms of how I structured the space that I would be in. Yes, it's my home. Yes, I work from home, but I structured this time after I have had Jack to support me continuing to build my business at a different pace, right? To
Hmm.
support
Yeah.
me to continue. And I think, if we loop it back to around what, you do for you and your clients is we just got to give ourselves that space and that time. And we don't do that. And we're not taught how to do that. We're not taught how to, like you say, set boundaries. That's a simple way to put it. But that's like,
Yeah.
that's it in practice, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, even with my own business, like for the first like 6 months of my son's life, I really stepped back from trying to grow it and develop it.
Mhm.
Not because I don't want to. I have big goals. I have projects that I'm working on behind the scenes that I'm quite excited about. But I also recognize that this stretch of time I'm not going to get back in terms of like time with my son and time with my wife. And at the end of my life, I'm not going to look back and go, "Oh gosh, I wish I'd worked more." It's like I want my business to support. Uh, I want it to be a
Lifestyle to
support to.
support your lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to live to work, and
Yeah.
that's not to say that I don't work hard, that I put time in. I do because I love what I do and I'm passionate about what I do. But I get to do it on my terms, which is so much different. And I don't think I could ever be an employee again. I would not make a very good employee.
I can't imagine. I mean, I watched some of my other mom friends who, often question that, like, but you work so hard. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. I'm checking an email and an app and I'm structuring my day and saying, okay, he's fed, he's happy, dad. You're on, you're in the control for the next 2 hours. Call me if you need me. I'll hear him. Don't worry. And learning to work in those increments. But look at some of my mom friends who, the 3 hours that I might work in a day is the
Mm.
3 hours that they see their child in the day. And I think couldn't do that. I mean, I know that they're more fully present in those 3 hours. They have to be, but then they're getting them up and getting them to daycare and school and all that kind of stuff. And I just feel so blessed that it's the opposite for me. And, I can really own my schedule. I think that's so, choice is a powerful thing. Comes with a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
There's no one to blame at the end of the day.
It-
But, I think about that, and I think about the fact that I'm like, well, I'm going to trade an hour here so that, when you're 6 or when you're 8 or when you're 10, and I need to be there for you, and you're going to remember that I'm there or not there, I can say, I'm there. I'm
yeah.
totally there.
Well, I think maybe we need to redefine success as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
Like I have big goals in terms of what I would like to accomplish, but if in my lifetime I never accomplish some of the most ambitious goals I set, I'm not going to look back and say my life wasn't successful. Um, I believe some of that's been driven by the social media and influencer culture and so on to sort of present like that living the dream is this version of success. And I'm like, hey, I get to work from home, get to see my son multiple times a day, change his diaper in the middle of the day, which I actually enjoy that. I mean, I don't enjoy the smell, but I mean, like, it's, but really,
Great bonding.
I tickle his tummy, I get close to him, I
Yeah.
touch my nose to his nose, we have a little laugh, sometimes he tries to throw himself off the table.
Yeah.
That's why there's a, seatbelt on the table.
Yes. Yep.
But to me, like, I'm like, I can make a living doing this, my wife, she has right now some of the freedom to do the things that she wants to do.
Mhm.
She's a performer,
Okay.
and recently just did another like theater engagement. So I had my first like 7 hour stretch being like daddy alone with baby. Yeah, the last time, the longest stretch prior to that was like 3 hours, but he's still nursing almost exclusively, which is like really great in one sense. My wife's like, it's so handy, I can just carry his meals with me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that is amazing. But it's so that my definition of success in all of this is really like I have the ability to make a living, make ends meet, do something I'm passionate about, support my wife, be present for my son, and everything else that comes along is just like a bonus. And yes, I have ambitious goals that I want. There's things I want to do, impact I want to create, and so on. But right now, I am already enjoying like success.
Exactly. And it's a great feeling when you can sort of come to that space. And when, I don't know about you, but I know that certainly, having done some of this work, and certainly for, people that want to, I'm hoping that they're picking up on the sense that you and I have, right? There's a lot of peace here. We're pretty
Yeah,
at peace with
yeah,
our decisions. um, and we've worked pretty damn hard to get here, to have
yeah,
this, mental space and mental peace where we can talk about this. One of my favorite things about it is, I went years ago from not being sure how I was going to make ends meet. And so having the big goals, but no actions or plans, and lots of things, internal things that would get in the way of my own success. I'm definitely, the problem of
yeah.
my
We
own
all are.
success. And then, to get to the place today where I feel like there's endless potential and possibility. And
Yeah,
so, chatted with my VA and podcast producer today, and we were talking about different things that can be done. I think, wow, I have like a year's worth of opportunity and work to grow and expand and impact and do. And, her comment was, well, when am I going to find time to do this? And I was like, no, we don't operate from a scarcity mindset. We don't do that. Not here, not now. I did for years, living in there's not enough. I don't know how I'm going to do this, and I have to hurry and get it done. And now I'm like, you know what is meant for me is coming for me. As long as I'm tuned in, tapped in, turned on, that's it. And like you say, the staying present. And it's really fun knowing that after this, I'm going to go upstairs and I get to cuddle this tiny human and be present. And like, that's my
yeah,
day. I've worked today.
yeah,
And then there'll be a nap, and I'll think, okay, I got like 20 minutes before he's going to notice I'm gone.
yeah.
And I can go and do this, which also lights me up. And so I feel like my family gets the best of me. My work is not getting the best of me because I'm finally really just setting those powerful boundaries and making good choices.
Yeah, absolutely. That's crucial. And maybe for people listening, like boundaries, because we use this language, and I think we throw this language around because we're
Yeah.
quite familiar with it, and we understand it. But maybe I'll phrase it this way: we kind of instruct people how to treat us. It's not a guarantee that they're going to treat us well, but they will take our cues. We instruct people how we want to be treated by how we respect ourselves and how we honor ourselves. And in like the situation where, I was asking my wife to change how she spoke to me. Now I look back, and this isn't to say she was being a nasty person or anything, but because I had been suppressing my emotions for so long, she had to be kind of had this abrasive style of communication at times when she needed something from me, because it was what she needed to do to reach me.
Mhm.
But as I became more emotionally accessible, she didn't need to communicate in that way. And so I had to open up and say, and so there'd be times where she would use language or speak to me a certain way, and I'd say, look, I'd like you to rephrase that. You know, a really simple thing in a sense, but I'm saying, I took a stand and said, this is how I would like to be treated. And in turn, of course, it's reciprocated. I think it's really important as well. We hear about like, be true to yourself, be authentic, live your truth, all this kind of stuff. It's not an excuse to be a
Yeah.
dickhead,
No. Yeah.
for lack of a better term.
Yes.
It's like you want to be the highest version of yourself. You want to bring the best version of yourself, because I think there's sometimes in this realm or discussing things in this way, there can be an inauthenticity, like, oh, I'm just an a-hole or whatever, like that's who I am, and if you don't like it, walk away. Well, that's actually a very sort of, I've put up a lead shield that you can't break through, because I'm still very, very insecure, because there's a real difference between being confident in who you are and being strong in who you are as a person versus having to put up this abrasive shield.
The strongest men I know have been the most gentle because
Yeah.
they literally have nothing to prove. They know who they are. And that has never escaped me when I run into the a-holes, as you would say. That I'm like, okay, there's an insecurity here. How do I know? I just know I've met some very strong men, and they would never behave in this way.
Hmm.
Because if you're truly strong, you don't have to make anybody else feel small, right?
No, it's like gentleness is, like I call it, strength under control.
Mhm.
And so I look at my little son, and you know, um, I think how I handle him, and I could handle him very differently. I have the physical strength to do so, but I choose to temper that strength to handle it just enough. Like, we have a little bit of horseplay.
Of course you
Um,
do.
of course we do. We have to wrestle.
You've got to test your limits. Yeah, this is
Right.
part. Yep.
I put him on my head and spin around like a helicopter, and he just. I'm not sure how he discovered this. Just one day, I just put his tummy on my head, and he just started flailing and giggling, and he just absolutely loved it. So now we do this thing where, I put him on my head, and we spin around like a helicopter, and he just laughs and loves it. But I I'm gentle with him. I don't wrestle with him the same way I would when he's 10 years old or something, and I don't have to. And so just knowing that, like, you can have this strength, and you decide like how much of it you use or how measured you are in how you use it, and that comes from a place of security.
Yes. Well, John, you and I could definitely hold space and chat for hours. I'm so glad we don't live that far from each other.
Yeah, I love that phrase, like, hold space, and I use it, but I often find myself remarking like it is a bit of a cliched
It is.
phrase to use. However, I try to define it for people again and just say, look, I'm going to be present with you in this conversation. You can share whatever it is you want to share,
Mhm.
and there's not going to be any judgment here, and that's that compassion. And
Mhm.
just again, we've talked about compassion. I just want to put a couple of, like, my version of it out there.
Yeah.
Compassion is not enabling, and it's not judging, right? So it's not a get out of jail free card, but it's, so let's just say, I bumped into you and you're halfway down a bottle of wine or something like that. And if I was to walk up to you and be like, hey, you know better than that, you shouldn't be doing that, that doesn't help you, right? That causes an emotional retreat. On the same token, if I was to come to you and let's say drinking half a bottle of wine is really unhelpful for you and your goals, and I was to say, you know what, you're already halfway down the bottle, you might as well finish the whole thing now. So that's enabling. That's not helping you to move forward. And compassion really walks the middle ground and says, hey, it looks like you're, halfway down this bottle of wine. Let's figure out what's going on here, you know, and how can I support you?
I
And so
love that.
really
I
helping
love that
somebody
you
move
brought that
forward.
up.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. I know whenever I say hold space, which you're right, which is very cliche. For me, it feels like, the world, whether it's your technology, distractions, there's so much that can distract from someone actually being present in a conversation. And so
Yeah.
when I say I'm going to hold space, it's like, and sometimes, people are not ready to talk. So I'll say, well, I'll hold space when you're ready. For me, it literally feels energetically in my mind that I'm like, I will like hold out everything else. It's just you and me. We can,
Mm.
figure that out. And I think for myself, there's been a learning to hold space for my own self, right? Because really nobody
Yeah.
can advocate for what we need and who we are. And I wanted to make a comment about what you said about boundaries, because boundaries were always something I thought I had to erect after somebody crossed them. I didn't necessarily know that you could or should, don't should on ourselves, but could potentially put in place before you need them, which means you actually have to do the work to know where your boundaries are. And if you realize someone's crossed a boundary that you didn't know you need a boundary there, it is totally acceptable. And you do not need to explain yourself if you're like, whoa, I need to put up a boundary.
Yeah.
And that can be challenging. And I mean, I laugh about it now. And I think it's because I've learned that, well, nobody gets out of life alive. So, we're all figuring this out. It's kind of messy in the middle.
It
But
is.
when I realize that now, I'm like, wait, there needs to be a boundary here. And sometimes when I say that, people are like, you need to put a boundary up. I'm like, this is a good thing, but this is the line.
Yeah.
And I've started having these very candid conversations where I'm literally like letting like the verbal that's happening in my brain comes out. I think it's because I still don't want to make people uncomfortable. But I have to also stand up for myself. And I'm like, wait. I need to put a boundary here. And then usually they laugh and they're like, I've never met someone like you. And I'm like, well, I do not have this all figured out, but I do know
Yeah.
I need to speak up for myself right now. Yeah.
There's real value in that, and communication solves a lot of issues. But maybe also we could say that conflict isn't necessarily a bad thing.
No.
Uh, my wife and I still have disagreements. They're
Really?
not that common. Yeah, I know. After 17 years together, they don't look nearly the same way they used to, but they still happen.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned something, and I was like, yeah, the thing is, we're committed to this. Like, we said in our vows till death do us part, and we made that commitment because we weren't going to go into this relationship with like a plan B or an escape plan. It was like, we've had some late nights because we have this rule that we don't go to bed angry, and so we've had some nights where we stayed up all night, and it's like I got to go to work in like an hour, like, but we just agreed that we're gonna work at this. And so when we run into conflict, it's like there's actually a real opportunity there to if something has come to the surface, it needs to be processed, needs to be metabolized, needs to be worked through, and that's okay. The other thing is, like, there shouldn't be guilt around the fact that we're human beings with emotions, and sometimes these emotions bump into each other. Because I feel like, again, we want to present like our best selves before the world, but I think part of having integrity is saying, in my real life, there's still these things that I battle with too. And I think you said it really well. We're all figuring this out as we go.
For me, it's really important to talk about because, we present, even right now, people often say, you said, you look very rested. And I feel like saying yes, because there's this ring light right here and I have the light on and I put on some makeup and there's a thing on Zoom where it's like, make your best.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course I look my best. But then I was like, yeah, but that also cheapens it rather than saying, well, thank you. Because the other part of me goes, yes, and you're only booking one podcast a day now. And so you're showing up with some intention and you did shower before and get yourself in the game space. And so don't, throw it away because of that. And so I think for a lot of us, that's a big deal too. And then I don't want people just to see this space because on Instagram, the filters make my life look amazing. And that's part of the reason why I want to tell my story with so much transparency, right? To use words like, sexual assault and suicide and some of these things, not to glorify it.
No.
YouTube wanted to take it down. I was like, no, I'm telling the truth here because the reality is people are awake at 3 a.m. because I was at one point looking for some kind of hope that they want to know that there's life on the other side. Should I keep fighting? And I hope they find my story. And I go, yeah, guess what? It's still messy, but I have found love and I have a new baby in my world and I love my businesses. And I'm still trying to get divorced from somebody. And I'm still trying to get through this stuff. And I still found out that scarcity's still running the show. Different level, another devil, right? But, I'm so glad that I, have fought this hard to get here.
Yeah. I mean, it's why my podcast is what it is, which might as well throw it out there now. It's called
Yes,
Between
please.
the Before and After.
Yeah.
And it really is about tapping into and sharing people's stories in the messy middle, saying this is what it really looks like. Whether it's talking to a cancer survivor or talking to, someone who, and today I was chatting with someone who had lost two of their husbands. And being able to navigate grief, and how do you live after that? How do you even have a will to live after that? And yet she still did. So, and I believe there's a hunger for this out there, because social media has presented sort of the glamorized, the polished ideal for so long that people are like, we've lost what it means to be human. And there's this desire to reconnect to what it means to be human again. And that's why we're having conversations like this.
Yeah, and I mean, they're my favorite, the ones where I'm realizing I'm listening to people who are comfortable saying that they walk with a limp. That's something my dad said, like we've all gone through something, and now we're just going to walk, and we recognize those people and go, oh, hey, you're like me. That's
I love
awesome. Right?
Walk
That's
with a
true.
limp. Yeah.
Yeah. I've always loved it, because I think that that's the truth. And especially for those that have come to a place of peace about it. I'm quite comfortable now. I invite, the things about me that love, and the things I used to hide with guilt and shame, and they come and sit at the kitchen table now. I'm quite comfortable with them. um, and like you say, compassion doesn't let anybody off the hook. But there's such an amazing space when you can find that compassion first for yourself, and
Mm.
then for everything else and everyone else that may have caused that injury. And that's a real amazing place to be from. But anyway, time is getting away on us. So anything
is.
you'd like to leave our listeners with? Obviously, we're going to have all of the information to connect with you and listen in on your podcast. I'm excited to catch up more with you, but anything you'd like to
Absolutely.
leave the listeners with?
Compassionate awareness is the space where we create transformation. What I mean by that is we have so many unconscious behaviors, habits, patterns, mindsets, beliefs, identities, and we have to bring them into our conscious awareness if we're going to create change. The process of bringing it into our conscious awareness can be uncomfortable, because now we're going to see our flaws as they are. We're going to see ourselves without the filter. Now, without compassion, we'll move into the space of judgment. But with compassion, we can look at it with a curious desire to understand. And so compassion and awareness is where we create transformation, and powerful transformation in our lives.
Wow. So for everybody listening, just hit the back button and listen to that again, because that was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Jon, for coming
Thank you.
today and sharing space with me and stories, and just being real. This was wonderful. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. And for the rest of you, you know the deal. We really do love it when you like, comment, share. Let us know that what we're sharing is making an impact for you. We love sharing it, but we also love, more than that, hearing your feedback and connecting with each of you. We'll have, of course, all of Jon's information down below so you can connect with him. And again, for the rest of you, we will catch you on the flip.
Are you looking for a simple, easy weight management solution? I thought you might be. I know I was. I also wasn't interested in something with a ton of gimmick without any science behind it, which I know a ton of companies have. The company I'm about to share with you actually has 12 of their own clinical studies. And for me, with my science-based background, I needed to know that. I also needed to know the product worked. And so I was introduced to the group that however had 125,000 members in it, all supporting amazing stories of weight management, weight loss, hair regrowth. Oh my gosh. Not surprising though, considering the product itself has won numerous awards in and out of the nutraceutical industry, which I think is pretty incredible. Pretty exciting as well is the fact that it's made with their patented technology, 7 international patents on the collagen in this product, made entirely from chicken sternum. Chicken sternum, why? Because it most closely mimics the collagen that our own bodies create. Now, I'm a 36-plus-year-old woman, and so making sure that I'm maintaining and taking care of and trying to reverse the clock so I can age gracefully is super important to me. Making sure I'm taking products that are safe, making sure I'm taking products that are approved, and making sure I'm taking products that I would be happy to share, because there's integrity at the top. So this company is a values-based company, which I absolutely love. Not only do I love that, but I love the flavors. This is mango. Mango's my favorite. This is from the Modera company, which you've heard me talk about before. 1 simple spoonful a day. In the morning, I can add it to my coffee if I feel like it. I don't add the mango, I add the vanilla to my coffee. But I can add a simple spoonful to my day. It tastes awesome. It tastes amazing. And it's helping my body to maintain the figure that I've worked to get to. Why not? Now, if you're looking for some weight management, this is going to help curb appetite. It's going to help your body to function as best. And we know that when you do something like that and you make wiser choices, your body says thank you. This is part of an entire system called the Lean Body System. I will make sure to post information for that below, or you're welcome to scan the QR code, which I know is going to be somewhere in the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. If not, head over to modere.ca. That's MODERE, modere.ca, or modere.com, and use code 5579027. Again, 5579027 to save $10 on your next order, regardless of what you put in your cart. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the listen.